been much more than an hour since the truck was running well. He tried again, but it was no keener. He could feel his heart start to go. Something flashed in his rear vision mirror. Headlights in the distance? A single car could give the whole game away. He turned the key again, willing it, wishing it to start, knowing he was asking for supernatural help that he didn't believe in. Then it fired, and, after a few coughs, continued to fire. His lungs worked again, his pulse no longer banging along the insides of his arms. He pushed the truck into gear, kept the lights off, and pulled out onto the coarse gravel road, feeling the weight of the steers as they tried to hold their feet on his tired tires and suspension. The truck groaned, even in the lowest gear, but gradually built momentum, as though it were a giant lumbering machine that, once started, could never be stopped. There was no cough or smell from the clutch. He peered into his side mirror, saw that the float was holding, and then looked back at the rear tires, knowing it would be a very bad time for one of them to blow. It was a risk he hated taking, but one he had to. Bald tires didn't leave tread marks. As the truck eased into its rhythm, and the yards faded behind him, he almost began to hum to himself at the wheel. This would make for another good payment. Soon enough, maybe a year on, there would be no more duffing, and that would be a relief, even if he didn't care for the landowners he stole from. Self-righteous, two-faced bastards, proud cockatoos of honesty, until it didn't suit their needs. Suddenly, far back, a tiny set of headlights appeared from behind a rise in the road, and Sweetapple felt adrenaline's surging return. If anyone saw him driving with cattle on board at 1 a.m. Christmas Day, nowhere near home, the conclusion would be obvious. And worse, they would be able to place the time and location of the truck. His truck couldn't outrun them. He'd be caught, if not now, then in a week or two, when Old Man Allcorn worked out that he was missing cattle, alerted the stock squad, and they joined the dots. Sweetapple consoled himself with the idea that the vehicle probably belonged to revelers of some sort, finally finding their way home after Christmas. Possibly, hopefully, they'd overindulged and were tired, maybe even drunk, forgetful, and not very observant. Or maybe it was a pigger, restless and bored, filling in the night. Or perhaps a traveller, with no family who wanted them, driving for the sake of driving. Sweetapple knew all about that, too. He could take a risk that if they were piggers, out on a night like this, they might be up to no good themselves, cutting fences and sneaking into properties to chase porkers, using the festive season to their advantage, just like he was. They might not give a bugger about what he was up to, but they would know pretty quickly that he was up to something, and he wasn't keen to chance it and give anyone that kind of leverage over him. Up ahead, a sign pointed to a large ramp that said, Pine Hills, Truck Entrance. The lights behind him were getting larger. The vehicle, whatever it was moving at a hell of a clip, which meant it probably wasn't conveying a Christmas family. He took the entrance, accepting it as close to an instance of divine intervention as he was ever likely to get, and coasted up the road, his lights still off, as if it were perfectly normal for him to be doing what he was doing. He drove until he was far enough off the main road that the vehicle's lights couldn't pick him up, but not so far that he would alert the property owners, parked within sight of the pale reflection from the Pine Hill sheds, and killed the motor. The homestead was probably 700 or 800 meters in the distance. There were no lights on. He was pretty sure this was the McKinnon's place. Ted and Janice, wasn't it? And their son, Peter, who he knew to be a good guy. It didn't matter. If they heard the truck and came looking, they would be unforgiving. Everyone hated a thief. The night was warm and still, except for the throaty sound of the vehicle approaching at pace. Within minutes, a ute, the owner of the headlights, sped past, trailing music.